So we're now going to deal with the centerpiece of the ADM, which is that core little phase that sits in the middle, referred to as requirements management. And you can see, according to the ADM, it touches all aspects of the ADM. So it's quite encompassing, and it's really almost a separate discipline in itself. So let's have a closer look at requirements management. Right, so we're back to our ADM. Now what we do is, sitting in the middle here is requirements management, which is this piece here. And what we do is, this actually touches all aspects of the ADM. So what this tells you is that I start capturing requirements as early as my architectural vision. Now, if you recall way back in Module 1, we were talking about the ADM, and I drew an analogy of an axle, right, linked to a wheel that spins, and I've sometimes referred to the spin of the wheel. So here is your axle, in other words, building the practice of doing architecture. Now we're attaching it to requirements management, and we're getting this wheel to spin around that, so to speak. And there's iterative approaches and the likes of those things that help. So since I'm documenting in my architectural vision what's going to occur in that spin of the wheel, the requirements in here are going to be dealing with that specific architectural vision. Now, the point of the architectural vision is, if you do not have any requirements, well then in the architectural vision is where you start capturing them. If you do have some requirements, in the architectural vision is where you start documenting them. So the point is that what tools and techniques can we use to document requirements? Well, the point of the TOGAF framework is really just the glue that sticks it all together, and the TOGAF framework is really quite weak in this area of requirements management. There are other frameworks that are far more richer in how we extract and elicit requirements. And one of those frameworks is the BABOK, all right, which is the Business Architecture Body of Knowledge. All right. And just to be clear, what you do is you have within our discipline, and you'll see we would have introduced these frameworks in Module 1, just to reiterate that. So what you've got is you have a variety of bodies of knowledge, right? And there's the business architecture body of knowledge, the business analysis, there's the EA body of knowledge. And that's where all the meaty content is, right? But above this, you have what's referred to as a framework, which is the glue, okay, that starts to bind these bodies of knowledge together and kind of tell you how to use it. And that's what we mean by a body of knowledge. So the BABOK, it has quite a lot of maturity around documenting requirements and eliciting requirements. But really, there's actually literally hundreds of techniques of what that you can use to begin to extract requirements and model them. So let's have a look at one of the frameworks that can help you a little with eliciting some of your requirements. And although it is a framework for enterprise architecture, it's called the Zachman framework, which we introduced in Module 1. It does help a lot with eliciting some requirements. So let's just quickly have an overview of it. So basically what you have is you've got a couple of layers that you're working with. Okay, so you've got contextual, you have conceptual, you have logical, and you have physical. And there are one or two others, but let's leave it at this one, just so that we have an understanding. And then you have a couple of views that you'd want to look at across that. So you have the who, where, what, why, when, and the how. And what these allow you to do is at least be able to get an understanding of what pieces you need to tick off as you're working through your requirements. And using this type of framework helps a lot when it comes to keeping at the same level. What we find is when people use requirements is they often kind of jump around between these levels, and it kind of moves all over the place. And remember, keeping traceability of your requirements is sort of a key business activity, because ultimately your business people, that's the piece that they're going to be signing off, is the requirements they've given you. Well, actually, while I'm on that topic, just to make clear, this is not a concern. A concern is what keeps your stakeholder up at night. A requirement is something that he wants you to do to help him address that concern. So just make sure you have that understanding. So really the way you work through these cycles, remember we had the ADM up at the strategic level, right? And we kind of broke it down and we decomposed it. Well, similarly, this is exactly what happens here now, is you have a contextual layer which helps you contextualize what all the types of requirements that we need to address. In other words, what are the list of drivers, what are the list of goals that we have, and what are the list of people that we're dealing with. And as you kind of move down into the conceptual logical layer, you're starting to ask slightly more and more detailed information, right, related to those particular views, the who, where, what, why, and when. Right, so that's just a framework that you can look at. You can have a look at one of the links under additional resources, which will point you to the Zachman framework as well. What I also want to mention here is just sort of two additional pieces that TOGAF refers to. One is Valera, right? And Valera is a template for you to be able to capture requirements in, and also recommends a tool called the ATAM, which is the Architecture Trade-off Analysis Method. And really what they deal with two aspects of requirements, and I've touched on it lightly, in which we looked at functional versus non-functional requirements. Non-functional, just to reiterate, being flexibility, reliability, scalability, and functional being I would like it to manage my customer. So this is Valera, deals a lot with, it's a template which helps you capture those, and ATAM is a technique developed by Carnegie Mellon, the Software Engineering Institute, to help you look for trade-offs between some of those non-functional requirements. All of those, you take a step back, all of those are tools and techniques to help you elicit requirements more as you spin through the ADM wheel.